You're born in Holland.
Yeah.
So explain to me, what was the reason to come over? Who decided to come over? And exactly where did you...
Oh my gosh,
What
okay.
what did I strike here?
I was actually born, I can actually remember World War II, okay? I was 5 years old when it ended. We were living in Holland, and I can remember being machine gunned by planes, having, oh gosh, bombs thrown at. I could take a machine gun apart and put it together again when I was 10, because my father was military and he was the head of the resistance in our area. Okay, and we were bombed by the British, we were bombed by the Americans, because we were surrounded by German troops. But my father did 4 more years of jungle warfare in Java after World War II. He went there. His best friend was shot by a Japanese soldier in 1948, 3 years after World War II ended. Immediately after World War II, we were put on a boat with 12 passengers and took a month to cross the Atlantic Ocean, landed off Galveston, Texas, that wouldn't let us in. Ended up in Miami, took the train to New York City. My mother's parents lived in New York State. We stayed for a year, went back to Holland, came back via Kingston, Jamaica, lived in Kingston. Kingston was not a safe place to be. My parents...
I'm just trying to imagine the
My
map.
parents sent us to Montreal to go to school, because we ended up, my brother and I ended up in fights every day, came home with our shirts torn off, bleeding. My parents said, okay, that's it. They sent us to Montreal to go to school. Ended up in Montreal, going to school in Lachine. On our way back to Holland, we ended up staying. So we ended up staying in Lachine, because my mother was actually Canadian. And went to Lachine High School, went to UMB, as I said, and ended up teaching phys ed and being department head of phys ed at BHS.
So what was your dad's occupation before
His father was extremely wealthy, but his father sent him to Montreal to improve his English, partly to get rid of him, joined him up in a cavalry regiment. My father was on a horse with a sword when the Germans invaded Holland. They lasted 5 days, okay? They didn't last very long, okay? So then he did the resistance for our area, which if he'd been caught, he ended up in 6 months in labor camp in Holland, actually, not in Germany. And he was 6 feet tall, 200 pounds when he went in. He was 6 feet tall, 120 pounds when he came out. But the Germans actually handed him his sword wrapped up in brown paper. But if they'd known about his resistance, he would have been shot. My mother delivered resistance papers in a baby carriage. So that was...
To what, to recruit?
No, like the resistance movement would run off flyers about how the war was going. But, anyway, the story just goes on and on. And he was almost caught by the Germans, because the Germans would send messages by radio to England to bomb this place, bomb that place. And they would bomb a hotel 3 blocks away from our house, because it was filled with German officers. But the Germans would do triangulation, okay? They could figure out where the radio message was, and he was almost caught. But 7 people that were around the radio were machine gunned. Okay, he was able to get away. But he was caught he told off the mayor of the town, who was pro-Nazi, and the next day the Gestapo came to our house with machine guns and carted him off.
So how did your mom end up in Holland?
Oh, because he was sent over here by his father to improve his English. And he worked for Robin of Flour Mills.
This is before the war?
Yeah, before the war.
Oh, before
so
the
she
war.
went over there, married him over there. But there was a whole wave of Europeans that moved to Canada, Australia, New Zealand after
Is it because everything was bombed out?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
there's opportunity.
There was opportunity.
So
elsewhere.
let's go
Yeah,
where
that's
nothing
right.
was bombed.
And because my mother was Canadian, we ended up here. Yeah.
So you ended up in Lachine because that's where
she
his
was
in-laws
from.
were.
That's where
Your dad's
she was
in-laws
from.
were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Father spoke 4 languages, right? And while he was in German concentration camp, he learned to speak German.
So he came here to learn English and subsequently
Yeah,
probably learned French at the same time.
No, he didn't learn French too much, but he learned Malayan when he was in Java. He was in Java jungle warfare. Because Java was a Dutch colony, eh? Indonesia was a Dutch colony, and some of the countries like France and Belgium and Portugal and Holland didn't realize after the war that the age of colonialism was over. But they tried to hang on to their colonies. So they sent troops to Java to hang on, but after 4 years, they gave up the colony, and France was in Algeria, Portugal was in Africa.
And did this have to do with the Second World War as well, or was it?
This was the remnants of the Second World War. When the Second World War ended, some of the countries like England and France and Portugal tried to keep on to their colonies. India was let go because of Gandhi. They did it without having a fight. But Holland sent troops for 4 years to Java. So he was in Java fighting like in the jungles, but he volunteered for that. He was, he did that. He just got up and left.
What else? That's what he was doing.
Yeah, and he was very, very difficult. Do you know what a swagger stick is? The swagger stick is a riding crop that the officers had under their arms. And when my brother...
Was it to whip the horses or something?
Yeah, to whip the horses.
Yeah.
Because he was cavalry. And when my brother got into trouble, he got hit with a swagger stick, and because I laughed at my brother getting into trouble, I got hit. Oh, you didn't mess around with him, okay? You just about saluted, and you had to call him sir.
So how old were when you got to Lachine?
I was
finally?
12 when I came here. I was 19 when I became a Canadian citizen.
So you're 12 years old, and you're jumping into high school.
Yeah, yeah.
In your first 12 years of your life, because you're being bounced around and all this stuff, and your dad's not there.
Around all over the place.
What stuff interested you at the time? Were you more artsy, athletics? What did you do to buy your time?
I had no idea where I was going. Like, we were bounced around. I lived in the States for a year, and I lived in Jamaica for a while. We lived in Holland. I went right through elementary school in Holland. No, we survived. But the war experience was a little rough.
But no toys, because you're not bringing anything.
Oh, we had nothing. No. But my father's family was very wealthy. Okay, my grandfather in Holland left my brother 5 years of university, everything paid. He said, "I'm not leaving you money. I'm leaving you the opportunity to do something."
So at that time, Lachine in the early 50s, it's still kind of a hustle bustle place, right?
Yeah.
Like Notre Dame Street is still happening.
That's right. It had Dominion Engineering, Dominion Bridge.
That's right. Dominion Bridge was huge still at the time. You've got the Empress Theater.
Jenkins Valves, all that. Yeah, it was all industrial.
So being a teen in Lachine was okay?
Yeah, it was good.
So explain to me a little bit about being a teenager in Lachine at that time, the Lachine landscape of the early 50s.
Lachine, it was a small community. Everybody knew each other.
So in the evenings and stuff, we want to get together with your friends.
Oh, we got together with our friends. We played on the CNR grounds. We'd play touch football or play baseball.
Where were the CNR grounds?
CNR grounds. They had a shooting range for pistols. They had tennis courts there, and they had a cinder track.
This is where, below the tracks?
Just above the tracks.
Oh, above the tracks.
Just above the tracks. They had a huge tract of lands that belonged to the CNR. There was a CNR station in Lachine at 34th Avenue.
So this is around 34th.
Yeah, that's right. And we'd go there, and three of us, that were my brother and another guy that lived on our street, would take bows and arrows with hunting arrows, and we'd stand in a circle like this. And 1, 2, 3, shoot. And then the game was who would be the last guy to run when the arrows came down. They were hunting arrows, okay? And they were coming down, 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 and we'd be looking at each other. Okay, who would be the last guy to chicken out? That's what we did. We didn't play video games. We didn't do anything like that. I
almost feel like this is a defense for video games.
This is a bad story. Between 44th Avenue and going east, okay, there was called a mud lane. It was a swamp.
This is where, how?
Okay, 44th Avenue, the tracks.
Oh, the tracks.
Okay, where Western Lachine Pool is now, going east. There was kind of the tracks went to the station at 34th, but we go on our bikes through there, and we'd shoot BB guns at each other, okay? We'd hide in the bulrushes and shoot at each other with BB guns. But that's what we did. It was stupid. Or we'd go above the tracks, above the highway, and shoot BB guns at each other. Some stupid guys were shooting 22s at us. Okay? Oh, yeah.
Because everyone had a gun at that
Well,
time.
yeah. You could
'Cause it
walk.
was,
My buddy from 51st Avenue had a Winchester rifle, and we'd just walk up the street across the highway with this Winchester rifle.
Because at that
22.
time, everything above the highway, especially at Lachine,
woods.
was
Was woods. Yeah. Stupid.
Now, at that time, what was your world outside of Lachine? Did you, and the high
Not
school
much,
years?
no.
Did you ever venture out east or west?
The kids from Dorval went to Lachine High, okay? Because Dorval High had a very short life, was built because Lachine High was overflowing. So we had a lot of Dorval kids at Lachine High. John Grant High School.
And that's east, but that's east
Yeah,
of.
that was the old
yeah.
Lachine High. I was there till the grade 10. Then it became John Grant.
So then
High opened
you
up.
all had to switch over.
Now it's called Lakeside Academy.
That's
Yeah, and we all switched over.
all switched over to the
Yeah.
bigger school.
Yeah.
How was the relationship between the English kids and the French kids in Lachine at that time?
They didn't mix. Okay, I remember when we went to John Grant High School when it was high school, but we had to walk over to George Esplin School, which was around 19th Avenue. It was an English language school, and Pichet Academy was on the next block, and we'd end up throwing rocks at each other. Okay, but that was, just being stupid. There was nothing. I worked as a counselor at Canawana for a summer. There was a camp in Ile Perrot, but that's when I was younger. A Y camp at Ile Perrot, Katimovic it's called now, and it was a Y camp. But the phys ed teacher, Don Cochran, ran the camp.
Your Lachine High.
And he was a Lachine High phys ed teacher. And if you were on his gymnastics team, you were automatically a counselor at his camp. So that we got paid $4 a week as a counselor in training. We got raised to $8 a week when you became a counselor. Okay, but we spent the whole summer there.
This is Ile Perrot?
Ile Perrot. And you got 1 day off a week. To get a day off, you had to hitchhike from Camp Perrot to Lachine on your day off. That's the only way I got home. And then I had to hitchhike to get back.
People still hitchhike on that bridge now.
People still hitchhike
Yeah,
on
there's still no
20.
public transit.
That's right, there was no public transit. So that's how I got home, I hitchhiked.
So this was a all summer long sleepaway camp.
Yeah, and then,
This is what your high school years.
yeah,
And there was swimming in the lake.
swimming in the lake. But then they shut down the camp because the lake was polluted.
What part of Ile Perrot? Where were you facing
Okay,
on the shoreline?
if you go up Donkey Shot,
Yeah.
okay, go past, there's an intersection where there's a golf course.
Mhm.
You turn right
It's a
and go all the way to the right to the end of that
Yeah.
road. Go up Donkey Shot,
Yeah.
there's a nursery.
Mhm.
And then you end up at an intersection. At the intersection, turn right and keep on going to the end. And that's where this camp was.
So you're facing Dorion.
You were facing Dorion. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were there.
I was there 4 years, and I ended up being tripping counselor. I would take a canoe load of kids up through under the bridge at Dorion with kids without life jackets, 12-year-old kids, and sometimes we would, the current was so strong it would whip us back, and we'd end up going through the bridge and then camping on Oka Beach. But Oka Beach was owned by the church. There was a monastery, so we'd walk up and ask permission to camp on the beach. Camp on the beach, and then we'd take the kids all the way to Grenville, opposite Hawkesbury, and camp there. Nobody had life jackets.
So you learned about all this stuff as you were at the camp,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
things
And that was my job. And I would take them up the Ottawa River and spend the weekend, when we got back the weekend, packing for the next week. The next week on the Monday, we'd take off again and camp on farmers' fields, chop down a little tree or whatever on the farmers'
Get
field.
arrested now.
Because coming back, you had the wind with you and a bit of current with you. So we sailed all the way back, and we had 9-man canoes.
These kids were Monday, Friday, or
Yeah.
was it or Mondays?
Yeah, they'd
was
be
it
there for a week or 2 weeks. But they were underprivileged kids, a lot of them. They paid $12 a week to go to camp.
Wow. And then the camp closed
The
down.
camp closed down because the water was
So
bad.
when was that? When you were graduating high
That
school?
was
Just before
late 50s.
university?
Late 50s.
Just before. Well, you were going to university anyways, right? Around that time?
went to university. I went to UNB in 59, and I was there till 64 because I did 2 degrees there. I started teaching at West Hill High School. I was there for 3 years before I was at BHS. And West Hill High had a pool, you see, and because I had a swimming background, I was water polo coach and swim team coach. I had kids on my team that were Commonwealth swimmers, Commonwealth Games swimmers, on my water polo team and my swim team.
So you got a job at BHS?
Yeah.
As a gym teacher?
Yeah.
Around what year?
I taught phys ed and I taught junior science because every phys ed teacher had to teach an academic subject as well. And I did a BA after my phys ed degree because I thought, well, when the wheels fall off, you might have to go in the classroom. So I did a BA. I'm actually an honors BA in American literature, believe it or not. And but I never taught. I taught junior science for years. One of the phys ed teachers, she was a super young lady. She taught grade 7 math. There was a girl in her class who was crummy brilliant, okay? And she told the teacher to sit in the front seat and she taught the class. But she ended up being an electrical engineer for Bell Northern Telecom. But she told the teacher, you sit in the front seat, I'll teach the class.
So what year did you say you started at BHS?
At BHS? Oh gosh, it had to be 19... It was the first year the extension was built, okay? And BHS was just two buildings, and in 69, they put on all the other extensions, the auditorium, the other gym. 64 I started teaching, but that was West Hill High. 69 at BHS. They hired 60 new teachers that year.
So you're a young guy teaching people who aren't that much younger than
No, I had a class of 20-year-olds, okay? At West Hill High I had a class of 20-year-olds, not at BHS. And my brother was 21 and he had his electrical engineering degree. He came to visit me at West Hill High, and the kids at West Hill were super. They were great. West Hill was like 70% Jewish kids. And they pulled a stunt on me, okay? I felt so bad. They felt the Jews against the Christians in touch football. But they did it as a joke to me. And I thought, oh God, Jim, you're gonna get fired. Okay? My brother couldn't believe it. But they did it as a stunt, okay? Beaconsfield High was like LCC at the time because it was all uniforms. The guys had gray flannels, blazers, white shirts, and a school tie. The girls had had gray skirts, white stockings up to here, white blouses, and a blue blazer. Every kid in the school. And you had upstairs and downstairs. You had to go upstairs on the right-hand side of the stairs, downstairs on the left. And there were prefects. And prefects could give you detentions at BHS, okay, when I started there. Oh yeah, if you were a kid in grade 7, a prefect could give you a detention.
A prefect is?
It's the top students in grade 11.
Oh my God.
Okay, and they could hand out detentions.
Wow.
Oh yes, it was like LCC. It changed big time.
Football was huge in those
Football
days.
we had 3 football teams, juvenile, midget, bantam, and all the equipment was paid for. Everything. We had NFL equipment. We had Rydell helmets. We had game uniforms, practice uniforms. We had everything.
What's your take on football in that era? Because when I went to high school in the early 90s, there was barely any football.
No, the school board stopped paying for all the equipment. I gave mine away to LCC because they wouldn't pay for it.
What era did football start to fizzle out?
It stopped when the uniform stopped and computers came in and you had to pay for computers.
Oh, really?
They stopped paying for football.
So late 80s,
Yeah.
mid to late 80s.
Oh, late 70s.
Those computers.
We had guys that played
The punch
CFL
card
football.
computers.
Yeah, we had Nick Iraqi was a offensive end. He played CFL. Well, Tony Proudfoot played for John Rennie. We had good football. We had good football, and it was all the equipment was paid for, but the coaching was voluntary. We had
Was that the leading sport at the time?
it was the leading sport.
It was more than hockey.
Oh gosh, yes. But you know, it was good for us as teachers because if the kid was an idiot in grade 11, we'd say, Sonny, you got a detention. We're not bailing you out. You keep your nose clean during football season because we will bench you. If you're screwing around in class, we will bench you. And the kids wouldn't realize that we were in touch with their academic teachers. And if a teacher said, so-and-so screwing around in my class, nail them in practice. And we did. And we had kids in practice that there was a kid that was a total idiot, okay? And we had the whole defensive line collapse on him in practice so that he'd get cleaned out.
What did hockey end up?
They ended up with hockey.
Hockey ended up becoming the predominant sport?
Yeah, kind of, and basketball, because Bill Wennington, who ended up playing for the Chicago Bulls, played for our team. And we had a principal who was a basketball guy, Pat Baker, who was vice principal, who was a basketball. No, we had good people on staff, really good guys on staff who put a lot of their time out for the kids, and the kids appreciated it. When I retired in June 1998, Bernie Buckley, who was 6'3", 275 pounds, stood at the front door and said, Jim, you're not leaving. I said, pardon me. I said, he said, I can't get substitute teachers. I stayed for 20 more years at BHS, just at BHS substituting, okay? Because I knew all the games, I knew all the scams, I knew all the kids who would, like I would be teaching on the top floor, I'd be teaching in French classes, right? A teacher would leave your lesson plan, and the super kids would do all the bottom feeders wouldn't do a thing. But
the bottom feeders.
Kid would, in the days of cell phones made things difficult. Kid would be on a cell phone, he'd order out a pizza. So I'd be at the top floor, and I'd see Pizza Hut coming through the back door.
What?
So the kid said, can I go to the bathroom?
Did this happen in your school too?
Can I go to the bathroom? I said, no. He said, why not? Because I'd seen the Pizza Hut guy, and the back door would be locked, from the outside. I said, no, you can't go to the bathroom. So the guy couldn't get into school with a pizza. So he'd go back to his Pizza Hut truck, and so I said to the kid, okay, now you can go. Of course, the Pizza Hut guy had gone, but I'd seen the guy, but I knew what he was doing. But when you see a kid like this, you know what he's doing. He's on his cell phone, okay? But I knew all the guys. I'd high five all the idiots in the hall. But we were all buddies. Oh yeah, but I got along fine with them.
Yeah.
And okay, so, but sometimes teachers would leave you amazing lesson plans, and it was great. And the top kids, hell, they'd be working on their physics class before I even got to the class. Yeah. But there were some amazing kids. They were great kids. I had Kent Hughes in my class. He's manages the Montreal Canadiens. That's the only class I ever had where I was on first name basis with the kids. They were phenomenal.
What era is this?
70s.
70s?
Yeah.
Now, do you notice a difference between 60s kids, 70s kids, 80s kids?
Oh, some of the kids. When the drug scene hit bad, and the cell phone thing, that was tough.
What was the drug scene? What was that?
60s.
Oh, you're talking about acid, when acid started coming into school?
Kids were, but that was every school.
How did you guys cope with it as teachers? Did you have to kind of...
It was tough because...
You
had to have to bit of a trade-off and...
Ideas and how to deal with it. And
yeah, some of the kids got stupid. But the top kids were always the top kids. And really, I had classes that even when I was doing the substitute teaching, at the end of my substitute teaching, gosh, I was in my 60s, 50s, 60s. And I told the class, look, sometimes my age group says the good old days, but I said, you guys are as good as any class I've ever had in my career. They were phenomenal. The kids were fabulous. And I said, don't let anyone tell you about the good old days, because you guys are just as good.